Okay, welcome. Today we are going to talk about Morningstar. So Morningstar is a resource that gives investors information about their investments. It is an independent resource, so it's completely separated from any of the companies or funds that it is reviewing. It provides articles and commentary written by a lot of analysts and editors. And it is a comprehensive financial database. And I'm not kidding when I say it has thousands of data points. It is very, very thorough. So one thing I want to point out is that there is this research component, and I mentioned it briefly, that there are analysts who really do their research, and they have different calculations and things that they do to get their data points. And a lot of their key points are only found on Morningstar, so they're like a leader in the industry for this information. And so that's awesome, but then it also requires a little bit of training to get used to the way that they describe things and the way they do things. So they have a lot of training and stuff, and then there's things like this too. So first thing is, how do you access Morningstar? So Morningstar is provided by the Oregon Public Library for its card users. So to use it, you need internet access and a computer and your Oregon Public Library card. And you start out at our website at oregonpubliclibrary.org, and then you go to Research and Discovery. And this lists all of the resources that we provide. Either we purchase them for our users or they're provided through the state, through BadgerLink. And so for Morningstar, you're going to scroll down to M and then click on Morningstar. And it will open in a new tab. And what you'll need to do is log in. So you'll enter your library card number and click on Login. And then it will go to this page where it says your library subscribes to Morningstar. Click Connect. So you click Connect, and then it opens. And so this is what the home interface looks like. It has these different big categories across the middle, and they're also in the top menu. So you can get to the companies from companies here or up here. So there's lots of navigation options. One of the easiest ways to start your research is in that little search bar to type in the ticker, the name of the company, the name of the fund, or the initials, or start typing the name of it, and it will auto complete and recommend things. And then when you select the thing you want to look at, it will take you to a quote page. And so then the quote page will have all of the data and information on that company, the mutual fund, or the ETF, the exchange traded fund. And so now I'm going to go through some of the key data points that are available for each of those three categories. So for companies, starting off, this is the quote page for a company, Facebook. And you can see there's already like a ton of options across the top. There's a graph, there's all these numbers, there's lots of really, really good information here. First thing I want to mention is the Morningstar Rating. So that is the 3 stars up there. So that is one of those unique things that Morningstar puts together based on its research and its analysts' conclusions and calculations. So the Morningstar Rating is a way to evaluate the strength of an investment based on how it has performed in the past. It's a scale from 1 to 5 stars, and a 5-star means that it's good. It says in its terminology, stock should offer a return that is above the company's cost of equity. So you'll get more out of it than what you put in. So Facebook is a 3-star, and so that says right there, and that will be updated periodically as new information comes to light, and it's updated daily. So here I took this screenshot on July 10th. So this was that rating for today. It may have changed by now, but that was for July 10th. So now I want to go to the analysis section. And so you click on analysis and it brings you to this section in the page. And this is where the analysts have written information about the company. And it also has this little chart that's kind of like a thermometer. So it gives you, again, I'm just going to keep saying that there's so much information on here. And you can read what the analysis says, and then you can also view the archived reports. I have this on another slide in the future, but coming up. But they've been doing these analyses since the 90s, I think it is. And so you can see all of the reports for a company if the company existed at that time. The metric that I am highlighting here is the economic moat metric, which I think is a very amusing metric, but it's also a super helpful indicator. So what economic moat refers to is how likely the company can keep its competitors at bay. So for long-term investments, when you're buying companies and parts of companies and things, you want the company to be able to stay one step ahead of their competitors. So this is the rating that says that. So the rating is expressed as none, narrow, and wide. And so you want that wide rating. So because you have a wide moat, so you can keep your competitors far away. So it's kind of a fun visual too. Another metric here is the stewardship. So stewardship relates to the company's commitment to its shareholders. And so this is an analysis that they do based on public filings, previous actions, and conversations with company officials. So in this case, the stewardship rating was standard, so just kind of the norm. Then there's also fair value, and this gives you some information on like how much you would want to pay for stock. So it's the estimate that Morningstar considers the fair price for that stock. And so there's a lot of information on how they come up with each of these metrics. For this one, it's a statistical model derived from the fair value estimate our equity analysts assign to companies. So they have a calculation that they do for that. And then there's also fair value uncertainty. So, with any calculation, there's always some bit of uncertainty that goes with it because you're extrapolating, you're looking at data, you're doing all these different things. So they have this uncertainty measure. So you can say if it's low, medium, or high, or very high, or extreme uncertainty based on their calculations. So here, their fair value was 245. The stock last closed at 245.07. So that, was 7 cents above the fair value, pretty standard. But the uncertainty was really high. So they weren't really sure if that value was actually like in keeping with what it should be. And so all of this information is also in the analysis. So you can read why they think the fair value the uncertainty is really high, or, that sort of thing. So you could just spend a lot of time just reading this one part, but then there's all this other stuff. The next thing that was cool was this price versus fair value. So this is a metric that dives into this kind of like last close versus fair value over time. So you can get a graph here, and so you click on price versus fair value, and it takes you to this graph, which is just, you could also scroll down to this part. And so it's like, whoa, all these numbers. you can select different options. This is interactive here. So I think I'm selecting basic here. And you can see the blue is when the stock price was undervalued. And then the red, you can see, you know, this is where the stock ended at close of day, but then this is what they thought the value, the fair market value was. So you can see it kind of flips periodically where the market closes and it was below the fair value or it was above. So you can see, you know, this over time to see how it goes. Okay. You know, there's a lot of other things I could probably do after much research, do the full hour on just this portion, but we're going to be moving on to funds or mutual funds. So this has a lot of commonly used data on mutual funds. So we'll jump into that next. So this is that quote page for a mutual fund. And they have the rating again, it's 3 stars and then gold. So it's another analysis that they've put together and done that for this particular mutual fund. And then this is all the information, the common mutual fund information. I don't know exactly what all of these things mean, but I'm guessing if you have mutual funds, you'll be familiar with some of these metrics here. I want to highlight the analysis again. For mutual funds, they investigate the analysis on these 5 pillars. So it's process, performance, people, parents, and price. And then this indicates whether the analysis is confident that the fund is likely to outperform its category on a risk-adjusted basis. So is it good or not? Is it gonna make money or not? So they look at each of these points, and here you can see in the analysis, it will tell you that, you know, the process is above average, the people is high, the parent is high. And the other 2 metrics are also in the analysis. This is just kind of the like, the quick take above it, you know, about it. You can read the analysis for the full 5 points. Here's where I'll mention the analysis and the archive. The analysis is comprehensive, and if you click on it, it is very long. It explains how the analysts arrived at their conclusions that led to the overall rating. And, oh, I was wrong. It was 1986. They've been doing these analyses since 1986. So you can see all of the past ones for that company, that mutual fund, that ETF. So there's a lot there. And now we'll move on to ETF, which I learned means exchange traded fund. And there are specific sections for ETFs or mutual funds or companies. And so the quote page will have that unique information for that type of investment. And these in particular have really cool interactive price charts. So you can go in there and play around with the data that they have. So this is an ETF here. And again, this is a 5-star Morningstar rating, and then it's rated silver. So silver is lower than gold, but it's still pretty good. Here the rating is gold, silver, or bronze. And so the gold is the top rated. There. So here I want to show the full chart, which is one of these interactive charts that's pretty cool. So you click on show full chart, and you can adjust the display, the events and indicators, and the time period. And then you can either, you can print it, or you can export it, or save it that way so you can get back to it if you want. But I'll just show you, here is one of the expanded charts. So you can see all of the different days and points. And so this is a 1 day. So you can compare up to 10 years, just how it goes you know, in its cycles throughout the day over 10 years. So you can really see the trend of that investment. So this is the intraday indicative value. And this is important because you can see the price change throughout the day. And then you can also see the percentage that it changed over a span of time or specifically for the day. And so if you check back periodically throughout the day, you can see it change just through that intraday change. And then this portion, you know, just has some commonly used information on ETFs. Just their main, you know, they say it's consistent. There are points that go across each of these, but there are some that are only relevant to ETFs. So those were the ETF data points. Okay, so those were the basics on the types of information that are available for mutual funds and companies and ETFs. Now that's all well and good, but like, how do you find the investment that's right for you? I mean, that's great if you have the ticker or something to look up a specific company, but how do you know what to invest in? So that's where the screeners come in. And there are screeners for the companies and the mutual funds and ETFs. And so you can find something that you can read more about and decide whether or not you want to invest. And Morningstar has created lists of content that you can look through. So these first three groupings, the companies, funds, and ETFs, you can see it says screen for stocks, screen for funds, screen for ETFs. So you could click there and start with a blank screen and start from scratch. Or under each of these categories, there are different, you know, pre-populated screeners. So I'm going to take a look at companies specifically. And the screener works the same for each of those three investments. So you can go in and see, you know, the information for each of those investments. The screener stays the same, but the content is different. So if that makes sense, I'll show you. Okay, so the company options, there's screen for stocks, which is kind of the blank template. There's stock favorites. So these are stocks that have been chosen by the analysts. Then there's also stock analyst reports. So you can look in their reports and read about different companies. And then international stocks. So you can compare international companies with the screener. So I'm going to do the stock favorites and just click on that and see what we get. And this is what the screener looks like. And here we have the options to go back to any of those screeners that I showed on the last screen. So if you're looking at this and you're like, I want to start over, you can get back to start over from one of those screeners I mentioned before without having to go back to the home page. So that's what I have highlighted here on the left-hand side. The next thing is these stock favorites. There are 339 of them. So that's quite a few favorites. If you know, you wanted to narrow it down to a certain industry or a certain price point or a certain whatever, you can do that using the screener. So what you'd do is you'd go down to the bottom of the page and then click this arrow backwards. So we're going to go back and change the parameters for this search. So right now, we're just looking for the Morningstar rating that equals 5 stars. And so to add to this, you'd go up to where it says select data to screen on. And then you can select one of these different categories to add onto your screen. So I'm going to select stock industry group. And then a thing pops up. One thing that's important to know is you may need to turn on your pop-up blocker or turn it off, I suppose, because it does use pop-ups to use this portion. And I'll show you later the pop-up notice that you'll get when you start to do this. And if your pop-up blocker is, okay, I've just said pop-up too much. You understand. You got me. Okay. So I selected stock industry group and then okay, and we'll now have the stock industry group business services. So this is now what we're searching for, and if you hit this arrow to the right, it will now show the rest of the things, the rest of the companies that have the 5-star rating and are in that industry. Okay. So that was an example of the screener. So you can screen the company's funds and ETFs using the same tool. So you can use the pre-populated screeners and then add different parameters, or you can start from scratch and create your own search. And it all works in the same way. So the next thing I want to talk about is the markets. So the markets is this section on the homepage. So just want to show that. And in this part, you can get some more information about markets, surprisingly. And they have, they highlights index, sector, industry, and fund category returns. And then you can also read a lot of analysis written by their team and get some more information about, the market. So here in markets, this is where we're looking at now. And if you click on markets, it takes you to this page, which has data and reports and information on the different sectors. On the home page where it had markets, it also had index returns and fund category returns. So this was the index here, and then this was the fund category. So that information is also available from this screen, just so you know. And these are more industry reports. So here is the index here, and just, it says here on the page that they may be taking this report away. So the content is not up to date because they're looking at retiring it. But before they retire it, you can still take a look at it. And then there's the fund categories returns. So Morningstar introduced these categories in 1996 to help investors make meaningful comparisons between mutual funds. And so the categories help investors identify top performing funds and risk and help them build better portfolios. So Morningstar reviews the categories and the structure and all that, so that these categories help investors make good decisions. So then these are the categories that it's talking about. So it shows the category within the information about it. So that's what that is. All right, and then the last section is the portfolio. And so then this is where, you've done all of your research, you've bought your investments, you've done your things, and now you want to see how you're doing. So the portfolio will help you analyze your portfolio. So the tools are here to help you make informed decisions. So you can evaluate your overall allocation and sector weightings. You can uncover concentrated positions, view your stock holdings that are behind your mutual funds. You can measure performance against industry benchmarks and indexes, and then just stay up to date about stuff that's going on with your holdings. So here, I liked this phrase that they put in their materials about Morningstar, and it's that the calculations and methodology are sophisticated, but their visual display makes it easier to understand. So that's just a way of saying, like, they put a lot of work into making this easy to use. So that's what the portfolio is. So now I will make a portfolio real quick. So when you click on portfolio, this is the page you go to. And so these portfolio tools are in the X-ray. So that lets you see into the portfolio and see how well your investments are doing together. And if there's, stuff that's risky or all of that. So I'll click on X-ray a portfolio. And so now here's where you would put in the investments that you have in your portfolio. And you can use the dollar amount or percentage. So this is where, if you have a brokerage statement or something like that to tell you what you own, you can pull that out and put in either the percentage or the dollar value. I'm just going to put in dollar value here. And then my screen froze. Okay, the dollar value. All right. So now I'll start typing in some companies and some mutual funds or ETFs. And so this is really nice. You can start typing in the ticker and it will pop up, or you can start typing in the company name and it will pop up. So I have just randomly selected some companies I thought of. There's MasterCard, Target, Lockheed Martin, Facebook, Dow, Chemical, and Kia. And then I just put in some numbers that I theoretically have in my portfolio. So the actual dollar amount is $3,350. So there it is. This is my hypothetical portfolio. So then you click on Show Instant X-ray. And here is all the information about my investments. So you can see I mostly have US stocks. My foreign stocks, that's Kia. That's all I got. And there's a bunch of metrics here. So I'm going to be going through some metrics again. Across the top, you have these different views of the data. And so I've just copied the header up here to take a look at in more detail. So we have the overview, which I just showed, and then the interpreter page, which shows plain English analysis of your investments. Intersection is the view into the underlying holdings in your portfolio. So this company, this mutual fund is these things, and so looking at what those things are. So this information is helpful because you can see what stocks overlap in your investments and the weightings, potential overweighting. So potentially you'd be more invested in, a certain industry or a certain market, and you want to have a diverse portfolio instead of all being in one area. Asset class is the next one. And so this helps you understand how your holdings are diversified between stocks, bonds, and cash. And then stock style. So style boxes are a mutual fund classification that was created by Morningstar. So I learned about it today when I was learning about this resource. So it is a way for Morningstar to visually represent the investment characteristics of stocks and mutual funds. So this metric here shows how well your holdings are diversified across the style boxes. Okay. So sector. This shows if you are over or under concentrated across different sectors. Stock type shows unique classifications like high yield or speculative growth. So you can see that your investments match your investment strategy. So if you really want to go for those high yield ones, you can see if that matches what you've actually purchased. Then there's stock stats, and it gives you different ratios for holdings. There's fees. it can compare the expense for similarly weighted hypothetical portfolios. So you can say, there's more fees on these or less, and compare that way. Then there's regions, which shows a breakdown of your holdings across the world. So are they all in the US? Are they all in North America? All of that. So if one region is hit by something, you wouldn't want all of your investments to go away. So that's an important thing to know. And then last is the bond style, which is a bar graph that shows what type of bonds you have and how diversified your bond portfolio is. So those are those headings up there. And then there was another, I keep on finding these like really cool metrics that they've determined and they're showing in a visual way. So one thing was the stock sector. So we have the percentage of my portfolio that I just put together. So if it's cyclical or sensitive or defensive, and so it has my investments broken out by percentages, and then it compares it to the S&P 500 for those percentages. And so you can compare your holdings to the S&P 500 to see if you are under or overweighted relative to the market. So here you can see for the cyclical, I'm way over. The S&P is 28, I'm at 58. So I may want to change this ratio. I'm really under on sensitive. I think all I have is, I think I had Facebook. I don't know, anyhow, so I think that was the only one there. So I probably need to invest more in technology and energy and industrials. And then I'm about right on defensive. I think this was Lockheed Martin is what I put in. So I'm about 25%, and that's what S&P 500 also shows. And then I just wanted to show you the rest of this page. So if you scroll down, here are some more metrics, and you can see the investments that I have, the holdings, and more information. So back on the portfolio page, that was the first column, that was the X-ray. And then we have these three other columns too. So in asset allocation, this gives you more information on bonds and in international investing and different fund styles that can help your portfolio. So this is kind of a learning area where you can read some articles, get some more information, and learn more about various asset classes. Then we have investment goals. So this is more learning and reading and information about what you want to do. Are you a young person wanting to retire early? Are you looking at retirement? Is that what you're doing? Or you just had some money and you wanted to invest? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And so it gives you good information about different strategies and important things that you'll want to do with your money. And then last is the calculator, which this has the retirement calculator and college savings calculator. So, you're saving for important times in your life, and you want to make sure you're on track. So you can use these calculators for that. So that concludes the overview of Morningstar. And if you've if you've learned anything, I hope it's that there's a lot of information available in Morningstar. And because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of information. So it's a really great tool. Now I wanted to share with you some error screens that, sometimes weird things happen. And I ran into a few things as I was doing my research on Morningstar and putting together this presentation. So I thought I'd share with you some of the things I ran into. So if it happens to you, you'll kind of know, okay, that's fine. I know how to deal with this. So if anything happens, reach out to us and we can contact the vendor and get more information about what to do for this, or just help you troubleshoot. So the first error screen that I ran into was access denied. And then it recommended that I allow pop-ups, which didn't seem relevant. And then it told me to maybe contact Morningstar, and I was confused. So I tried some things, and I don't know, it didn't really work until I noticed that it said provided by blank. And if you'll remember in previous screenshots, it said provided by Oregon Public Library. And then I looked at the URL and it said membership, no license, remote. So something had happened and I was no longer authenticated into this product. So what happened was I, had Morningstar up. I walked away from my computer for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or something, and the authentication went away. So I no longer had access to Morningstar. Luckily, the solution for this was really easy. I just had to log back in again, and it was fine. Everything was back to normal, and then I could proceed with my research. So if you see access denied like this, go ahead and close the browser, open it again, and log back into Morningstar. This was another baffling thing. I clicked on a link and it said this page is temporarily unavailable. I can't remember what page it was, but essentially they were updating whatever I clicked on. So for this instance, you could just go back to the Morningstar Research Center and go back to where you were, and it was fine. For this one, the back button also worked, so you could try that as well. If all of that failed, if going back, just clicking return to Morningstar Investment Research Center or hitting the back button didn't work, again, you could close your browser and enter Morningstar again. So there's that. This particular error, I can show you what I clicked on. It was here. Okay, so I clicked on this blank ticker. I clicked here because I was like, what's this about? And this is a URL, I could click on it, but then I got this error message. This error message. So ticker not found. Apparently it was an empty thing. So I just hit the back button and it went back to normal. Everything was fine. So I guess I'm not quite sure why the ticker was empty, but it was, and just click on something else. Easy solution, click on something else. So this was another thing I ran into a couple times. And it probably was because I was searching how to do different things. And so I would do a Google search for Morningstar and then, index something or another, whatever. And then I click on something and then all of a sudden it looked like I was on the Morningstar website, but then there were these ads. And I had to click through these ads to get back to Morningstar. And I was like, what's going on? Because, we're purchasing access, so we don't have to, do the ads and that sort of thing. And when I was looking at this page here, you can see that it looks similar to our product, but it has all of these ads everywhere. So if you see ads, you have somehow gotten onto the open website instead of being on our product. So again, it's really simple. You go back into our library website and log back in to Morningstar using that authenticated link with the library card number and all that. So then this was another thing that I ran into, and I reported this issue to Morningstar. I logged in, and instead of saying it was provided by the Oregon Public Library, it said it was provided by St. Charles Public Library. You know, it was fine because you could access all of the information available. It was the same subscription. You know, it wasn't like you lost something. But that should say provided by Oregon Public Library. So somehow I had authenticated into the wrong account. I don't know how. The fix for this was to log back out and log back in, and it logged me back into Oregon. So hopefully this is not a persistent issue. We have reported it, and hopefully they'll fix it. And it may be more associated with my library card, so I don't know if it will happen to other people too. But if it happens to you, no need to worry, all is well. Okay, so the last section is the help and education. So from Morningstar's homepage, they have this whole section, help and education. And so they have live training that you can attend. They do monthly webinars. They also have guides and videos and tutorials, and then a whole investment classroom, which I started, but I didn't get all the way through. And so I'm excited to go back and keep learning. They also have this really great glossary, and so if there's like words you come across that you're not familiar with, you know, index or, you know, some of these other stock market terms, you can go in and find the definition for them. There's also a lot of the information that I shared with you is also here. About Morningstar's various ratings and measures that they have created. So you can read more about each of those ratings as well. So that is what I have. We have a lot of resources in addition to Morningstar. If you have a question or if you need help, please get in touch. I have our phone number and our email address here, and we're happy to help you use these resources. We get them so that you can use them, so you can get the information you need. So that's what we're here for. So if you have any questions, if you need any help, please feel free to reach out. So thank you for watching this video about how to use Morningstar. I hope you found it helpful, and let us know if you have any questions. Thanks.